Good morning, everyone, and welcome to worship. Everybody, I invite you to wave to everybody else. So all these hands waving, and those on the phone, you can imagine everybody waving to you. It's so good to see familiar faces and the new faces that we have, and we're glad this can be a place of solace and hope for people from near, but also from far, that we can stay connected with each other. My name's Frank Dukes, and I'm honored to be lay worship weaver this morning, along with our tech people who are working behind the scenes, Sean Scally and Julia Landis, and then our leader for Joys and Sorrows is Christine Gresser. Our sermon portion this morning is a compilation of voices gathered by Hayley Owens and Laura Horn concerning members' experiences of August 11th and 12th, 2017 and following. We're so grateful for those who took the time to share their thoughts with all of us, even as that experience, of course, was deeply painful for many of us. Just to give you a heads up too, there will also be a short video of the song, This Little Light of Mine, that was taken by Ellie Deer on August 12th, following those stories. And all of these, the voices, the video may be difficult for some of us. So we invite you to do what you need to do to take care of yourself throughout this service, including pausing your viewing of the service if that's something that you feel called to do. And it's always good to remember to breathe. There's also an opportunity immediately following the service to share or process it, if you would like, in small group discussions after our service in the social hour. Our interim minister, the Reverend Linda Olson Peebles, started her work with us yesterday and will preach her first sermon next week. This morning, she's here to give us a brief hello.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am looking forward to meeting each of you in the weeks to come, and I'll be probably asking you for time for us to get together to talk, and maybe it'll be virtually, but I still look forward to hearing your stories. I'm so glad to join you in worship today. It's especially meaningful to me to be with you as you're reflecting on your memories of August 12th, 3 years ago. On that day, I traveled to Charlottesville from Alexandria, Virginia, to join with the citizens and clergy of your community, to be a witness to your love meeting the hate that was in your streets that day. As the day was ending, your church offered sanctuary to me and to others of us who had been tear gassed and traumatized. And so I am so glad to be with you again this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Linda. I will now read you the words of welcome. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all who welcome all are welcome here. So we will now light the chalice, and I'll say the words of the chalice lighting. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and understanding, truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. So Linda is lighting our chalice, and Sean has lit a chalice in the background too. And if you have a chalice in your home, please light it now.
And now we will share a grounding meditation to call in and recognize the natural elements of change and growth. I invite you to find a comfortable position. Settle yourself into your chair and relax. Plant both feet on the floor. Inhale deeply and naturally. And if you're comfortable doing so, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth as we meditate. Soften your eyes, your jaw, your neck, and shoulders. And contemplate the images on the screen, this sacred altar. Or, if you prefer, close your eyes. We invite into our shared space the element of air in the archetype of Nuit, Egyptian goddess of the sky and heavens. Nuit is the remover of barriers. Air can be powerful, dangerous, destructive. It can blow as a hurricane or a tornado, ripping the world as we know it apart. And yet, these storms can sometimes shake the most deeply rooted tree to take down dead limbs, leaving the tree stronger, healthier than before. Take this power, this energy of destruction, this feeling of being blown apart that we felt here in Charlottesville 3 years ago, and let Nuit shape it, mold it, guiding us to the place where we can see that this destruction has allowed a way for barriers to fall, for a new beginning to open. Let us feel the element of fire through the imagery of Pele, Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes and fire. She is known as the woman who devours the land. Fire can burn and destroy, as can molten lava, boiling over the earth. The fire of the torches on August 11th, 2017, filled many of us with a sense of foreboding, fear, and anger. But fire also transforms. It burns away all that is not needed and prepares the fertile soil for new growth, something fresh and completely new. Let us take the transformative power and passion of fire into our own existence, lighting our way with the fire of commitment to change. Let us welcome the element of water through the stories of Oya, African Orisha, lady of storms and bringer of change. Water, when it is most powerful, brings forth fierce rains and floods that can wash away entire communities. And water is adaptable, flowing always back to the sea, and it can lead to dramatic, rapid change. Sometimes events that are deeply traumatic and painful can shed light on the path that we must choose. Let us call on this cleansing power of water to wash away injustice where we see it, to give us courage to speak our truths, and to guide our hearts to love, equity, and justice. And we welcome the element of earth with the vision of Durga, fierce Hindu warrior goddess who embodies righteousness, protection, and victory of good over evil. It is said that she rides astride a tiger, symbol of power, and destroys negative energy, including hatred, anger, prejudice, and selfishness. The energy of the earth can be frightening and destructive. Earthquakes can shake the land, shifting the foundations, the core of our society, and even the core of our very beliefs. This change that is coming, let it shake us to our cores. Let the fierce energy of Durga on her tiger guide us on our path of truth, to use our power to be a force of change for the better. And now I invite you to take 3 deep, deliberate, intentional breaths. And with each exhalation, envision the light, fluffy seeds of a dandelion, blowing the seeds of our intention to the far corners of our community, our land, our planet. And when you are ready, gently return your awareness to the here and now, and open your heart to the remainder of our service.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hayley Owens, and I've been working alongside Laura Horn to envision how we might recognize this third-year anniversary of the events that transpired in Charlottesville in August 2017. I want to thank all of those that have shared their stories and thoughts as we gathered experiences and reflections for this service. I have come to understand how varied people's experiences and responses are. Mostly, I have a better understanding of how profoundly painful and traumatizing this event has been for our community. From what I have read from those who've shared and understand about myself, there's no doubt that those days changed us. With our summer storms of late, I've been thinking a lot about the trees tossed in the wind and rain, the ones that come down and the branches lost, the thunder that shakes the house. I find myself asking, how can it still be standing? In these moments, the stability and comfort of my home is questioned. The racist assault on my home, Charlottesville, 3 years ago was destabilizing and traumatic. For many, we were unfamiliar with worrying about our own and others' safety in the daylight of our hometown. Others were not so surprised. For Black communities and people of color, this was a familiar threat and reality. And I want to recognize that these 2 days of terror in Charlottesville were a wake up to the overt hate to many, and that the murder of George Floyd this summer might have also felt like another wake up to systemic racism, that Black people have been very aware to the danger and inequality they face in this white supremacist culture. Speaking from my own experience, I wonder if 3 years later, part of the pain that remains from this storm in Charlottesville is the knowledge that despite the evidence before my very eyes of how racist our culture is that it is so easy for me as a white person to continue to fall back asleep. The stability and comfort of my white illusion returns, and the house is quiet once more. It is easy for me to not look out the window at the daily presence of racism in our society. I'm full of excuses. Besides, it is dark outside, and there isn't anything that is clearly illuminated to me. Again, thinking about storms, I begin a quote from Alida and Marisha. Nature has taught me about fluid adaptability, not only about weathering storms, but using howling winds to spread seeds wide, torrential rains to nurture roots so that they can grow deeper and stronger. Nature has taught me that a storm can be used to clear out branches that are dying, to let go of that which is keeping us from growing in new directions. End quote. The analogy of a storm in nature is useful for me to think about. It is neither good nor evil. We are not judging it for what it just is. It tears down trees that we thought were healthy and infallible. It takes out electricity that we're so dependent on and shapes rivers through our yards. It spreads seeds wide, nourishes roots deep, and shakes out the dead limbs for new growth to come in. It fills the air with an electrical energy that is simultaneously a feeling of danger and vitality. This storm that swept through Charlottesville had tragic casualties and felt terrible because of the damage intended. But I believe that it was not a personal attack. It was not us versus them. It was an expression, an obvious to all symptom of a racist society that we're all steeped in. I take this view that has been taught to me so as to be empowered in the role that I play. I have a choice to embrace the change this event brought. I can be complicitly not racist, or I can be actively anti-racist. My actions matter in all aspects of my life. When I think of it like a storm, I think, what has this event revealed to me about the beliefs I have about police as protectors? I examine a branch that has come down. What belief might I grow in its place? This community that I see and feel that has come up and join hands to stand in the face of violence nourishes my roots with their courage. My roots grow deeper. The energy and danger of the storm reminds me of my impermanence and renews my commitment to living out my deepest values to strive to grow interdependently with my community into our truest selves, a thriving and diverse ecosystem. This is hard work that does not ignore the pain that the storm brings. It honors the pain, it sits with it fully, it grows from it. This perspective embraces change and is as natural as the trees at the forest floor, growing strong with the new light that penetrates when a great old tree has fallen. Everyone heals in their own way. It will take time and community, and it looks different for all of us. What I know from the bottom of my heart is that part of the healing is in the action of rebuilding. I imagine it as moving and shifting our bodies, swaying our hips to the rhythm and finding joy in the work. This is the way of the natural world. My hope is that we can shift enough, grow enough, and in the warm embrace of community, do the personal work to address white supremacy within ourselves at the individual level. And like dandelion seeds, we will proliferate across the land, sprouting up in the cracks of sidewalks, front yards, and rooftops, till the individual becomes the collective. We are called to be the change we wish to see, and thus the world changes. And so, as we transition into reading from our congregants' experiences, I offer you this poem by Lynn Ungar. Breathe. Breathe, said the wind. How can I breathe at a time like this, when the air is full of the smoke of burning tires, burning lives? Just breathe, the wind insisted. Easy for you to say, if the weight of injustice is not wrapped around your throat, cutting off all air. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry, so much cause for despair. I didn't say to be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. We're going to need a lot of air to make this hurricane together.
We asked this congregation to share their reflections from August 11th and 12th of 2017, and we were honored and touched by the stories and reflections, the narratives, the poetry that came to us, many sermons worth of powerful, genuine truth and insight. And we were touched also by those of you who said, it's too painful to revisit, or I tried to write it down, but I couldn't yet. So we kept every word. This morning, we'll share just snippets, bits of your words, without, abridged but not edited, and without attribution. And we do hope to honor all you give us. As Frank said and Hayley has, this could be painful. And we all need to take care of ourselves and each other. So as Frank said, turn off your video if you need visual privacy. Know that everyone will respect your decision to step away if you need to, and even to leave the service if that's what you have to do. As we would in the sanctuary, if you see a friend who might need a shoulder or an ear, maybe you can reach out with support. We will certainly hope to be of support to each other in the coffee hour, the social hour after this service. And if you would like pastoral follow-up, let any staff member know, or email pastoral@uucharlottesville.org. That'll be in your chat box. And you'll hear Hayley's voice first now.
The immediate impact on me was complicated. I felt a combination of extreme sadness, shock, anger, guilt that I possibly put my daughters in danger, and some shame that I felt essentially useless in my attempts to help the injured. I remember that afternoon sitting in my basement in silence, trying to process what had just happened and my mix of emotions. My best friend from high school saw a picture of me leaning over Heather and called me. He and several other close friends were supportive, but my family was furious at me for taking my daughters downtown. I felt like they didn't understand or care what I had witnessed, and that was quite traumatic to me, nor did they seem to be outraged by the white supremacists and their violence. Today, when I reflect on what happened, I still feel the same emotions I felt then, but they are just less intense. I don't know if taking my daughters there was a mistake or not. They think that it was not a mistake.
The night before the rally, something was off. I felt it and had deep anxiety. I live in the middle of the downtown area and people were on edge. It was not a quiet night. My memory was the fire. It seemed like there was a mob and that the mob had been lit on fire. Everyone, it seemed, held a torch. The mob was loud and yelling as I waited for the light to change and for me to turn from University Avenue in front of the rotunda and onto Rugby Road. There were so many people streaming like a river out of sight through the university, and they were converging on the bricks by the Jefferson statue. My heart started racing like a jackrabbit's. I wasn't prepared for the spectacle I was seeing. These weren't the old and pathetic KKK protesters like the earlier protest. These people were young and angry. There were women there. I don't know why that struck me as odd. I was scared, so I hurried on to the church to meet the Black Lives Matter folks.
I was shaken, but in control until I got home. Then I needed to let go, cry, and try to soothe myself. I also wanted to watch the local news to find out what was going on downtown. At that point, I'd only heard what the counter-protester who'd come to our sanctuary had told me. Shock, anger, despair, shaking, disbelief, need for information, amazement that the international news was picking up the story, embarrassment that this had happened in the very town that I love and call my home, stunned, needed to reach out to family and friends and tell them I'm okay, which is to say, not physically harmed.
For me, going over the events again and again is very painful and serves no purpose. I can talk about what I've learned. I can talk about what has helped me to recover, but I don't want to revisit what I saw and heard.
Needless to say, it shook us up seeing venom spew out of the mouths of heavily armed men and the chaos. We asked the police 3 times to intervene to prevent injury, and they didn't. The 3rd time, a fight ensued, and we were all tear gassed. At Kessler's press conference, I guess it was August 13th, Kathleen ran to attack him, but someone got to him before she did. Neither of us expected her to do that. Recently, during a protest about George Floyd's killing, I had an alarm response when the crowd I was in turned the corner. That was exactly what had happened just before the purposeful use of a car to injure people on August 12th. I still look twice when I see plain white vans.
Chaos, hate surrounds. Man giving hugs, peaceful songs sung. Chaos, hate surrounds, intimidation.
The open white hate I saw that day stunned me. The violence and anger were roiling. I was incredibly confused when I observed police officers hanging back and doing absolutely nothing to protect the people in my town, people of all colors who were there to stand up to white supremacists. I was grateful for medics who were set up in the park by activists who understood the depths of the violence that would take place. I saw them dousing the eyes of desperate marchers who had been tear gassed. In the days before and after, I came to understand that in a myriad of subtle and overt ways, every day in our town and our country, people of color experience this violence within the structures of our society, and we have not done enough to change it.
Everyone, do remember to breathe. I felt both guilty I wasn't here and also relieved, not knowing what I actually would have done that day.
I remember meeting with other local trauma therapists, some of whom were part of the events, to consider how to help a traumatized community heal, also how to help each other. The Green Cross sent trauma counselors for a few weeks, and we offered counseling at the library. Now, I realize we didn't do a very good job of outreach to the Black community. I remember going to meetings and learning more about the experience of Black people in our community. I remember conversations with Black people who attended our worship service with Reverend Jackson and his decision to preach at a white church. I realized how much I didn't know about Black history and the Black experience. I made a conscious effort to learn about white privilege. The classes at church that Linda Dukes and Diane Ober have led have been eye-opening and in some ways life-changing. Once I understood white privilege, I've been compelled to do something about it, even if it's just educating other people. It helped prepare me for the racial justice work we're doing now.
Before I get too far, I want to clarify my terminology. I have learned to use white supremacy to mean a society that protects the supreme position of people who identify as white. So understand that when I use that term, I'm not identifying you or any particular person as a white supremacist or white nationalist. I mean it to describe the system that we live in. There are people who said of the hate expressed in my city that summer that it came from outside our community, that this wasn't Charlottesville. But others, including many people of color, will tell you that it very much is. We are an example of how an area can be progressive and racist at the same time, that you can speak up for equity for people of color at the same time you're turning a blind eye to white dominant structures that continue to deny Black and brown people the full promise of America.
Before August 12th, I would have told you I'm not a racist. But now I recognize that becoming anti-racist and being an ally to my friends of color involves a lifelong dedication to self-improvement and facing hard truths about myself and those people and systems around me. I think the most important thing I learned from this scary experience is that injustice is not something that happens to others. It is simply not an option to sit back and enjoy my privilege when my friends and community members are systematically persecuted. This is my country and this is my community, and that includes those who do not look like me. It even includes those who may not speak like me or believe like me. They are my fellow community members. When my friends and country people face violence and injustice, it is not something happening out there to other people.
At the epicenter of a national resurgence of hate that I saw with my own eyes, it became clear that we need to activate ourselves for peace and justice in every way we can.
In order to get there, healing in our own ranks needs to happen first. This is the first step. We need help with this, since too many rifts and traumas have happened in our past that have never been dealt with. Then we need leadership from the ministers and the racial justice group in terms of taking a stand against white supremacy. A name change would be a good first step. Leadership in coming together as a strong, unified congregation, ready to speak out in the community as one voice, firmly standing up and standing out as being against all oppression and backing that up with actions.
What we need to do as a church is complicated and multi-level. Although we would probably all describe ourselves as liberal, I see so many differing responses. I have talked with people who self-describe as liberal who did not understand that the term people of color refers to more than Black people. I think our self-labeling as liberal makes it even harder to acknowledge the different ways we still embody racist thoughts and actions, limits our self-awareness and willingness to explore the painful awareness that our unearned white privilege causes pain in ways we aren't aware and do not consciously intend. Yet the reality is that it does cause pain and limits the freedom of people of color, and it is our work to realize this and then do something about it.
As an educator at heart, I believe this is an important role for me, although I feel discouraged that so few congregants seem interested. I think that white people need to learn the truth of our history and see where we are today, and that holds true for this church too. So many people have been doing inspirational things locally for racial justice. I can't name all of them here. I'll just name 3 from our church. Every Monday, Kate Fraley sends out an email to hundreds of people listing racial justice events and meetings that anyone can participate in. For years in person and now by phoning in, Edith Good has faithfully participated in meetings of FAR, that's the Public Housing Association of Residents, and city council meetings and more. And after the pilgrimage, Frank started a local planning group to look at truth and transformation.
These are inspirational things I saw others doing in response to racial injustice. Speaking truth to power, lobbying to change racist laws, including those protecting Confederate statues, advocating for changes that would foster more equitable practices in healthcare, housing, neighborhood development, education, and others, writing editorials and letters to the editor. As a white person, I am particularly pleased to read and hear so many more white people acknowledge our privileges, acknowledge the enormous harms of white supremacy, acknowledge the racial disparities that continue today, and join efforts that are anti-racist.
I have noticed that the new world of COVID inspired young people to create systems of support via social media that are direct and not tied to a patriarchy of systemic social welfare. The statues are coming down. The discussions about the courthouse center on what our community heritage acknowledges how the space in front of a courthouse should feel. History is the events of our past, but heritage is what we value in the present. What does our community want that physical space to be? What are our community values? The Police Review Board is currently seen as valuable. It may be a work in progress, but now its value is very different than before George Floyd's death became embedded in our bones. How we lean in to assure that all our children are educated during this COVID crisis will speak to whether we are listening. How we hammer out the rules of affordable housing will speak to whether we learned anything. How we exit jail and prison inmates directly addresses the prison pipeline. How we respect service workers in this pandemic speaks to how our people of color survive.
Sometime after August, I went to the park on purpose to reclaim the space, and I noticed how the grass and trees showed very little signs of the awful things that had happened there. They'd recovered, so I felt I could too.
I have such strong, deep, and confusing feelings about what happened that weekend, and I think that journaling about it felt like a release.
Thank you guys for sharing those. Good morning, my name is Ellie Ransom. On the morning of August 12th, 2017, I went downtown to where the protests were being held. I was nervous by the militarized outfits and large guns people wore casually over their shoulders. And I was both uneasy and infuriated when I saw these hateful groups and hateful flags and hateful signs walking around my home. Yet, just a few feet away, I was relieved by other signs that read, "Hate has no home here," and "Black Lives Matter" signs pinned up on trees. And I was comforted by the "Diversity Makes Us Stronger" banner just above my head. Everywhere I went, There was the bad, but there was also an overwhelming good. This short video that I recorded shows a glimpse into that morning. It depicts the scene right in front of what is now known as Market Street Park, where inside white supremacists had taken over. Yet surrounding it, religious leaders were arm in arm, and counter-protesters were chanting and holding signs urging love over fear. And they sang together, "This little light of mine."
Let us pause for a moment to reflect on what we have heard and experienced, and do remember to breathe.
Our prayer today is a quote from the late Congressman John Lewis. "You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Study the path of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean towards the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely, but when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. You are light. You are the light."
And now a meditation that Adrienne Murray Brown wrote in response to Congressman Lewis's words. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, let everything too heavy fall down you through to the earth. Let gravity hold it. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, let everything too small for this moment in history, too petty, let it fall down you through to the earth. Let gravity hold it. Breathe in lightness, brightness. Let yourself shine as a beacon of the way we feel, but have not lived. You are a light. You are the light. And now we encourage you to put all the feeling in your heart that you might have now to action and make an offering towards supporting the work of our church. Our tech crew has put up a slide with the information about making that offering. And you also, online donations are possible through the website using PayPal. And you can see the text there. And of course, the Postal Service continues to deliver many checks each week. If you find value in this weekly gathering, if you find value in this community, if you find sustenance, if you know the essential part, the essential truth that we are together, please share. donate to the service in some form as your current finances allow. So good, so good. It has been so good to be together. Please invite others to join us for worship each week, so this time can be a source of hope and strength throughout the world. Unless your parents, first brought you as a child, all of us are here, virtually all of us are here because somebody took the trouble or took maybe even a little risk of inviting us to be here. So feel free to do so. So listen now to the benediction. Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, and honor all persons. Return often to let your cup be refilled. The chalice is extinguished, but the flame of hope, truth, and love goes with us. It is finished in beauty.